We'd just be voting to make a space for it. Okay.
Always, when we going into executive session, that recommendation has to be made by the superintendent. That's right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Greg. Mr. Davis.
Mr. Worthy, can we have any clarification as to what, what the executive session is for?
I think I made that very clear a few minutes ago. And also the attorney piggybacked on what I said there. If it comes up,
You said different items.
well, down to personnel. If it gets down to a personnel issue, if you are familiar with the affidavits, we go into executive session for what? Personnel, the evaluation of the superintendent, also property, et cetera, if need be. Those are the things that we go into executive session for.
But personnel is not even on the agenda.
Yes, it is.
There
Read the
are,
package, you'll see that the personnel recommendation, let's see, it's item 10. I need to turn over. That's correct, personnel recommendation.
and again, as a placeholder, if we don't need it, we don't use it, but if we do need it, then this is the time to add it so that we are able to have that discussion.
That's okay.
That's all this is about. Nothing more.
So my question is simply, why wasn't it on the agenda before?
Because we failed to ask for it to be on the agenda.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor of adopting, I'm sorry, first I have to pass the modification to the agenda. All in favor of the modification to the agenda? Would you signify by raising your hand?
I'm sorry, I do have a question. Just going backwards, I'm still not clear. I know it says personnel, but then we stated that. And then Mr. Worthy stated that Dr. Reeves would have to call for the executive session. How will he know? We're unclear about what this is. How would Dr. Reeves know to actually call for the executive session? I just don't think I have enough clarity about this executive session.
That's not what I said. I said anytime we go into executive session, in terms of personnel, legal issues, whatever, that recommendation has to be made by the superintendent. Then a motion is made, you get a second, we raise our hands, and then we go into executive session. That is the procedure.
So I can add some clarity to that, even more clarity.
Please.
That is simply that when we discussed the agenda for this meeting, we didn't get down to that portion. And so in case we need this executive session, we had to adopt the modified agenda in order to have one if we need it. And that's all this is, nothing new.
Well, it might be new to me. I might be both of them.
Well, again, but I'm saying we don't have anything new to bring this one, nothing new. And so again, I'm gonna, I'll get back on my soapbox later, we should have one on every agenda, but okay. All in favor of adopting the modified agenda? I'm calling for votes now, is there a way to say that? All right, do I first have to, I have to carry the motion on the, let's carry the motion on modifying the agenda. All in favor? Modifying the agenda. Four, and what? The motion fails, so we will not modify the agenda for an executive session. All opposed, I'm so sorry. Thank you, we have 4 opposed. Get them? Okay, we're all good. All right, now I have a motion to adopt the agenda as written.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Davis, second by Dr. Maddox. Ready for a question? No question? Why couldn't we have a executive session?
call it for the vote.
I'm asking, this is the question period. What is the objection to having an executive session?
Well, hold on, you gotta carry that motion first.
Now we have a motion and a second, and so we're in the question period. And so my question, and I as chair, as a board member, what is the objection to having an executive session?
You want my opinion? It's that we have a very, very long agenda, and we did not talk about, 2 weeks ago, when we planned this meeting and talked through this meeting, we did not talk about needing an executive session. And so I think we have another meeting, we can do this if we have to. I just think it's a very, very long meeting, and we didn't plan it for it, and I don't like surprises.
I mean, my explanation is that, I mean, I've looked at the personnel list and I approve of it, so I don't know.
Thank you. I just wanted that to be clear. All right. Now, all in favor of, what is our vote now for? Adopting this agenda? Please show your hand. Your hand. That is 6-4. Thank you. All opposed? Thank you. So that motion carries. So now we're to the, is it 3-6? Right? Yeah, 6-4. Okay. We're down to our public comment section, and I have a statement to read for our public comment. We do have 5 people that have signed up to let us know that they want to share their thoughts with us tonight. This is policy BCBI, and this is on our website. All meetings of the Board of Education are open to the public except as stipulated by law. It is the belief of the school board that members of the public should have an opportunity to speak at regular board meetings. Therefore, the agenda for every regularly scheduled board meeting will provide an opportunity for any member of the public to speak. Members of the public who wish to speak at a regular board meeting must contact the superintendent's office no later than 4 p.m. the day of a regular meeting to be placed on the visitors list. To be placed on the visitors list, members of the public must provide their name, place of residence, contact information, and speaking topic. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. At this point, remarks must be concluded. No speaker will indulge in personal attacks while speaking. All comments are to be addressed directly to the Board of Education. To protect the privacy of our students, speakers shall refrain from identifying specific students by name. Personal concerns may be addressed in writing to the superintendent or president of the Board of Education. Written copies of comments may be provided to the board. At a board meeting, school board members do not respond to questions from the public. The district will respond to the public input as needed or appropriately within 10 working days. All good? Our first speaker is that Rana Hulana? Did I get that right? And this is a discussion on bullying. I'll spell your name in case I mispronounce it. Juanahullan. Next is Denise Smith, value teacher.
Good evening, Ms. Davis, fellow school board members, Dr. Means. Thank you for your service and for your time tonight. At the August school board meeting, I spoke of my personal 17 At the August school board meeting, I spoke of my personal 17-year history of partnering with Clarke County School District schools and employees to encourage hundreds of employees to save in 403B and 457 accounts. At the October meeting, Darlene Flagg, Vice President with National Life Group, and I each shared information about National Life Group, including their financial strength, reputation for integrity, and commitment to their clients. Tonight, I'd like to talk about value teachers and education. Value Teachers was founded by a former UGA educator, and her mission is to help all school employees retire with dignity. Value Teachers representatives are trained to teach the curriculum of retirement education. We are educators. The proposed change to the 403B 457 plan to offer only one vendor and to auto-enroll all employees does not educate. When visiting schools, value teachers reps collect information to determine an employee's needs. First, we ask, how well do you understand your state retirement benefit? There's three response choices. Either A, very well, B, a little, or C, what's Georgia teacher retirement, or CRS, depending on the employee. At the last school I visited, 2 people selected what's Georgia teacher retirement system. One only had 2.5 years experience, but one had 7 years. One 30-year employee checked that he only knew a little about his Georgia teacher retirement benefit. Our first appointment with an employee focuses on their state retirement benefit. They have to understand that benefit and the importance of the 403B or 457 as a tool to reduce or close the income gap that they most likely will experience at retirement. You've heard from some employees already, either by email or phone call, but I'd like to share some highlights of emails I've received. I'll share until my time is up. I'm grateful to Denise working with me to answer any questions I had about 403B and Georgia teacher retirement accounts. I have a full schedule this school year and haven't had time to do the research required to make decisions regarding my retirement accounts. Denise helped me feel at ease. What I thought was going to be a complicated process turned out to be less trying with Denise guiding me. As I've done with many employees, not just clients, I'm helping her buy years into her teacher retirement that she cashed out. I showed her how to transfer funds straight from a 403B with another company from another district straight to Georgia teacher retirement. I did not encourage her to move that money to our company and then transfer it over. I received no commissions for this assistance. It's just what we do, how we're trained. Another employee, I was sad to hear you're thinking of no longer having value teachers continue to provide their services to Clarke County employees. I began working with Denise in the fall of 2017. She was a lifesaver and helped me combine my many retirement plans, she had personally worked in several states, to one, and worked with the state to combine 2 state accounts into one. Until this time, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Katrina Evans, Charter and Advanced Ed Concerns.
I'll pass this evening, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Ms. Mary Bagley, Concerns.
Good evening to the superintendent, president standing in, and the rest of the board. My name is Mary P. Bagley. I live in Athens, Georgia, 1442 East Broad Street. You can contact me at marypbagley12@gmail.com. And I just have some questions for the board. One of my concerns is that I was told that 30% of all the teachers that graduate from the University of Georgia are guaranteed to be hired by the Clarke County school system. I want to know what percent of that 30% are people of color, because we have only 30% of our children that's graduating. So that was one of the concerns that I have. One of the concerns that I have is to receive an anonymous complaint and then to actually answer it and observe it is setting a precedence for something that doesn't seem quite right to me. Howbeit, I am not an attorney, but I do know some things about law. And you're supposed to be able to face an accuser, and the name is supposed to be on documents for the public and the person that's accused. Those are some of my concerns. And some of my concerns is for our children. I still need to know if the schools still have the sheets for the beds, because our children need those. Hadn't been able to get in touch with the person, but our children are supposed to have sheets on the bed according to the CDC, not laid on a mat without any covering. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bagley. Next is Asha Rodriguez.
Good evening. Before I begin my remarks, I do want to say that I actually am doing a paper on whistleblowers now, and in response to the last comment, there can be a time and a place for even anonymous whistleblowing in certain situations, as I think we've seen in the national news sometimes. So I caught up with an old friend last week on the phone. And he, you know, we talked about jobs, how we're doing, and then he asked about the kids, just like I asked about his. And I told him that I was worried about our school district. I'm still worried about our school district, but I don't want to talk about that today. Because I am by nature an optimistic person, and because this is a season for thankfulness and giving thanks. And I want to tell you, the Board of Education, that I was so heartened to see the move to restore $10 million of funding to Clarke Middle. I know that Dr. Means has been extremely supportive of Clarke Middle, and I really want to thank him for listening to the community and making this a priority. I urge the board to work with Dr. Means to see if we can redirect more SPLOST funds away from other projects, even where those funds have already been allocated. I know that we are all challenging ourselves not to be satisfied with the status quo with respect to our educating our children. Let's not be satisfied with the answer, well, some of those funds were already allocated to other causes. We have really pressing needs at CMS right now. I will tell you, the whole CMS community is chomping at the bit. We are so excited by the support that you have shown to us, and we are eager to engage. So please know that your support is welcome, and we thank you for it, and that we'll be asking you for more. Thank you.
And that concludes our speaker session for this evening. All right. Next on the agenda are, let's see, we have our committee reports, and the first report would be for the Finance Committee.
Yes, I don't have a report. We met on yesterday in the finance meeting, and Mr. Byron should be giving a full financial report as usual further down on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Worthy. Government Relations, Mr. Davis.
Yes, but prior to that, Madam Chair, do we have the documents, Charles, that we saw yesterday at the Finance Committee? Aren't they supposed to be up there for the public or not?
They will be shown later, Mr. Davis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay, my bad. Okay. Well, thank you. Government Relations Committee, we had a great meeting earlier in the week. We've got a number of things planned. We're going to, February the 10th, we have planned for a joint County Commission, Clarke County School Board session with the county manager, the superintendent, the mayor of Winterville, and this will be our second meeting. The first one was hosted by the county, and this one will be hosted by us and the Government Relations Committee, along with Dr. Means. We've worked on an agenda, and we just need to finalize that. And so, very excited about that. We also have the bare skeleton outline of a January, Mr. Knox, Dr. Knox, did we tentatively select a date? We did. It was the 13th. It was the first day of the legislative session. Our state legislators meet beginning January 13th, and we certainly want their support for Clarke County students and staff, as well as students and staff throughout the state. And so on that particular day, we tentatively plan to hear from you, the public, as to your expectations of our elected officials, especially the ones who are heading out that day to pass legislation that hopefully will benefit our children, our parents, our community. And that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Mr. Davis,
Forgot something.
December 17th, did you mention?
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry. December 17th is, we are meeting with our legislators. and the public is welcome to attend. It will be in that room over there at 4:30. We're meeting with our 3 House members who represent Clarke County and maybe a piece or 2 of another county, and also our 2 state senators who represent Clarke County and pieces of other counties. And so we are hoping to both wine them, no, we're not going to wine them, but we're not even going to dine them, but we are going to make some positive presentations as to the good work we're doing in Clarke County, as well as some of the deficits that we have in our budget and the changes that have taken place over the 20 years or so, maybe even shorter, of what the state puts in versus what the local taxpayers put in. And it used to be like this state, this county, and now it's like this. So anyway, we're trying to impress upon them the needs of, again, of our students and our staff and our community. Thank you, Dr. Means, for reminding me.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. You did say there would be refreshments?
No.
Okay, just checking, all right. I don't want to disappoint you. All right, so policy committee.
You said property or policy?
Policy, right. Yes, report from the policy committee. We just had a meeting this afternoon at 4:30. We will have another meeting 4 p.m. on December 19th. And so all board members as well as the public should be aware of that. And so we are making our way through some issues having to do with B policies, and also trying to get to what's become a backlog of work in terms of policies that we're trying to go through in a more systematic way.
Thank you. I was happy to join that meeting today. It was really good. Property committee next. Mr.
We
Wood.
haven't had a property committee meeting, but Dr. Dees has notified me that we are having one pretty soon. And I'm making the assumption that would obviously be after Thanksgiving.
Thank you. All right. Next, we're down to section 6, which will be board community reports. Athens Area Community Foundation. Who's that, right?
That's me.
Dr. Dagnan?
Sure. I attended the quarterly meeting for the Athens Area Community Foundation on October 29th, and just wanted to give a couple of highlights from that meeting. One of the things that they talked about was, so far in fiscal year 20, they have funded $196,092 in grants, and that's just from the beginning of this fiscal year. They have applied for a trauma-informed grant through the Pitalook Foundation, partnering with Athens Wellbeing and Envision Athens, and if granted, this would provide $200,000 over 2 years to provide access for mental health professionals in the area to recognize trauma. And then I also wanted to let everybody know that they have a training series that is a partnership with the Athens Area Community Foundation, the United Way, the ACC government, the University of Georgia School of Social Work, and UGA Service Learning. Once a month, they have training sessions that were designed based on what donors and what nonprofits wanted to learn about. And they just ask for a $10 donation, and that's on their website. So you can take a look at that and see if there are any trainings that might be useful. And then they provided 2 success stories having to do with funds and grants. One of them is a Certified Nursing Assistant Scholarship at Athens Tech, and then the other one is the REACH Scholarship, where 4 8th grade students get a $10,000 promise, which is $2,500 a year, for enrollment at an eligible post-secondary institution. And then when they receive that, there are many institutions that then match that 2-to-1. So they get the $10,000 and they actually end up getting about $30,000 in terms of a scholarship. So those are just 2 success stories that they mentioned at the meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Dykeman. I got to attend the REACH scholarship and I was really excited to see the kids with the assignment, which is great. All right, next we have Envision Athens. That's me. And Envision Athens have a, did I skip one? Dr. Matz, I had written your name down. So I didn't get already spoken. I'm sorry. Dr. Matz, we'll get that. Okay.
She's given me the privilege, and
Yay, thank
I
you.
didn't bring a prepared statement. I would just say I attended, I'm now a new member of the COC board. We met on November 12th, at 9 a.m. In the, what do you call that building, the facilities building. We had two guests, Kim Ness and Julie Caldwell were present, representing the interests of Clarke Middle. And we had a really good, I thought, quite positive and productive discussion with them about the Clarke Middle situation and how we're moving forward on that. And some of the history behind how that decision has been worked out. I thought they were very pleased, and they brought to the table a lot of good back and forth communication with their parents and communities. In terms of moving forward, what I understood, and I don't have really complete notes here, I should probably type up some notes, but the timeline, we need to establish a timeline. I understood, correct me if I'm wrong, Tawana, plans for early January, setting up a local building community at the school and discussing vision for the building, what they want to do. They have to decide whether they want to renovate the existing building as was done with COIL and BHL, or if they want to start afresh as we did with Hillsman. And I guess that decision can still be made, and so that group of parents and teachers and community stakeholders should have that conversation over the next few weeks to months. And I think I'll stop there before I get in trouble. We also talked about some of the other successes, all the other accomplishments that the SPLOST has pulled off in the last few months, not the least of which is the beautiful Hillsman Health Center, which everyone should stop in and check out. It's really, really beautiful. Let's see, discussions is starting down the planning process for West Broad now that we've hired an architect. And finally, I think one thing that we were shown again was the video and the website PowerPoint presentation that we saw 2 weeks ago at the work session, which is now available to anyone who wants to see it. It's on the CCSD operations website, and maybe we could put that website into the notes or somewhere. I wrote down, it's the Clarke County K-12 Georgia.us/page/184 is the name of the website to get to see this really good PowerPoint presentation about how e-SPLOST funds are spent and work through that whole process. So I found it very helpful. And I'll stop there.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
One thing that just to kind of put a bug in your ear, because I was talking to someone about the COC. If we had a little description on our Clarke County School District website, maybe who the members and that type of thing.
Sure.
I know that the county has such a page, and it may be useful for folks to find out more about the COC and who's on it and what they do and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I know when I went to the first meeting with you a month or so ago, and I had been then approached by some Clarke Middle parents, and I told them about this meeting, and they didn't know anything about it. So certainly putting them in touch with Mr. Sams, who's the chair of the committee, I think ultimately resulted in some of those parents coming to the meeting. So parents and PTO people are allowed at this meeting, so we should make them.
But I think having something on our website would be up to us as a school.
Sure, yeah.
Awesome, thank you very much. And then Envision Athens. So yes, Envision Athens had their Educate Athens meeting this Monday. I was not able to attend, but the different subcommittees are continuing to work. And I do know firsthand that Envision Athens will participate in the Christmas parade on December 5th, right? Yes. And I'm looking forward to working on the float, so I'll actually see a float before it's in the parade. My term on Envision Athens, by the way, will end at the end of this year, so I hope
mention the date that we're working with them, that we've now set? I believe it's December 9th.
We gotta cover that. Okay. All right. Does anybody else have anything else on GSBA?
I may have, if it's allowed by the chair, I wanted to kind of briefly show the public the legislative agenda that we're going to be voting on as a consent agenda. And I wondered if this would be the opportunity to maybe, since I neglected it before, if we could put that on the screen and
Is
just...
this a part of government relations?
Well, it is, but it also is part of the GSBA work, because we take that agenda items to our legislators.
So we just need for the staff to go to someplace to
Yes,
pull that up?
right there. And I'll just very briefly cover it. I'm just kind of looking, I got off track here. Our legislative agenda is something that we're going to be voting on in just a few moments. And I just wanted the public to be able to see it. It is online, and it will be placed on our main, if you look under Board of Education, after this is ratified by the board, you will see the 2020 legislative agenda. Right now, under the tab of the Board of Education, there is the 2019 legislative agenda. And I just want to point out just a couple of things. One thing that we're asking the legislature to, our delegation to contemplate is not only fully funding QBE, but particularly recognizing that districts such as ours that have a very high need based on the social economics of our student population should be extra weighted. In other words, it costs more to educate some children more than other children. And that's something that we are going to be introducing that concept to our state legislators. And that's covered in number 1. We also are still opposed to private school vouchers. And we're also very interested in promoting and retaining our teaching staff and having the state cooperate with us in this regard because it benefits all concerned. We're also concerned about the Hope Scholarship being moved away from need. It's kind of lost the original initiative of aiding students who otherwise would not be able to attend college and instead become what they call a merit system. And so we have real concerns about that, and we also have concerns with technical students not being fully funded in their education. And then the last one, we're concerned about our students whose parents come from other countries, and because these children themselves may have come over when they're very young, are being denied opportunities in our university system in Georgia. So anyway, the document is going to be, hopefully it will be approved by the board, and it will be the 2020 legislative agenda. And you can find it under the Board of Education tab after it's voted on. Thank you for your...
Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right. Next on the agenda is financial report. Myron?
Good evening, board members. The first one is the financial report. This first document that we're looking at is our balance sheet as of the end of October, which is period 4. So just a reminder, we are a third of the way through the school district, or the school year. We're sitting with a total assets of $77,744,078.
of which our cash balance is $77,636,744. Our liabilities are sitting at $26,230,000. And when you take out our reserve for inventory, our unreserved fund balance is $77,566,600. Please scroll down there. See document. Here are our revenues by source and expenditures by function. This is what we have received year to date and what we've spent year to date. The first section of revenues are our revenues from local sources. We have received a total of $69,667,359, and that represents 77.4% of what we have budgeted for our revenue sources, for our local revenue sources. And that's because we receive the vast majority of our ad valorem taxes in the months of October and November. Going down, our revenues from state sources. This is typically our QBE funds. We've received $14,856,638, and that represents 19.9% of what we budgeted to receive from the state. Our total income for what we've received so far, $84,680,571, and that is 51.5% of what we have budgeted. Going down, looking at our expenditures, here's our expenditures by function. We have spent a total of $36,996,976, and that represents 22.9% of what we have budgeted. Do we have any questions about the balance sheet or revenues and expenditures to date before we move on? I didn't include those in tonight's report, but they are available in the Finance Committee meeting notes. And the next one is the cash flow. If you go to the cash flow first. Up top, the cells that are highlighted in yellow, so we've got July through October. Those represent actual receipts and actual expenditures compared to two-thirds that are in blue. Those are projected revenues and projected expenditures based off of historical trends. And I'd like to draw your attention to that very top line item. And in October 2019, we received $57,782,515 in property tax receipts. This is about $10 million more than we expected to have received at this point in time. And that's primarily due because we received 5 disbursements from the tax commissioner's office in the month of October as opposed to a typical 4. It's kind of like if you get paid every other week, there's going to be a couple times during the year where you receive three paychecks in a month. This is primarily due to us receiving 5 disbursements from the tax commissioner's office as opposed to a typical 4. So to correct it, I have reduced the trends in November down to what we've actually received. And if we project out the rest of the year, it still appears as though we are going to receive more property taxes than budgeted. I'm going to caution you that we're still early on in the game. We're only a third of the way through the year, so this could definitely change. Going down to expenditures. The only line item of concern at this point is maintenance and operation of plant services. If all holds true, we could overspend by about $1 million. And like I said before, we're only a third of the way through the year, and this very well could be due to spending more of your budget up front as opposed to later on in the year. But we want to keep an eye on it because maintenance and operation of plant services is an area where you can encounter expenses that aren't budgeted for. So we'll just continue keeping an eye on this function as we go forward. In terms of our revenues, if we go back up, at the moment, we're looking at receiving $167,267,035. We budgeted $164,511,305, which means we're on track to receive $2.7 million over what we had budgeted. Conversely, if we go down to our expenditures, we budgeted $164,780,899. Take that back, I'm sorry. This document's somewhat confusing. We budgeted $165,216,955. If our actuals plus projected holds true for the rest of the year, we are on track to spend $164,780,899, which is $436,000 less than we originally budgeted. So right now, we're on track to receive more money than we budgeted and spend slightly less than we budgeted. So if these trends hold true, we're looking at adding $2,486,186 to our fund balance.
So could you say that number again for me, please?
$2,486,136 estimated at this point, a third of the way through the year. When you go to the KPIs. And this visual really shows in both cash position and our fund balance position. The line in red is FY20, and you can really see how it's spiked up compared to where we're at this point in 2019. And I fully anticipate in the upcoming months for these lines to come back together again. And I attribute this to receiving those 5 property tax checks from the tax commissioner's office in October. I can scroll down to the income. At this point last year, we had received 47.4% of our revenues. This year, we've received 51.5% of our revenues, so we have received more in total than we had at this point last year. We're looking at expenditures on the right. In FY19, we had spent 23.2%. This year, we're sitting at 22.9%, so we're slightly less than where we were at this point last year. The budgeted versus actual revenues, that line is right on track, and it's indicative of that extra $10 million check that we received from the Property Tax Commissioner's office. And once again, I anticipate this line to go back down and mirror the blue line from FY19. Our budgeted versus actual expenditures, at this point, or during the month of October, we had expected to expend $14,220,026, and we spent slightly more than that during the month of October of $14,845,973. And this bottom diagram kind of tracks our estimate of whether we're going to add or decrease from fund balance at year end. And if you recall last year, this kind of snaked throughout the year. And so in FY20 this year, we started at a deficit of $705,000. Last month, we made some slight gains, and we're closer to a deficit of $500,000. And because of the property tax check coming to us early, it all holds true with the trends. We're sitting at adding $2,486,136 to the balance. Anybody have any questions about the financial reports for October?
I have questions. So, just to be clear, some of what we talked about at the finance committee meeting, it's maybe not just that we've got a check early, but also you said that valuation of property was a little bit higher than we had expected. Is that right?
I wasn't part of the budget process, but typically what you do with your revenues is budget conservatively. And so, if I'm correct in my assumptions, we budgeted conservatively with our property taxes, and they're coming in stronger than we anticipated.
question. And so, something that I think the full board should be aware of, it's not a large amount, but it was something that we did talk about at the finance committee, was where we stand with regard to professional legal services. Could you at least speak to that, even if you don't show it?
I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but this is an area where we have, once again, budgeted conservatively, this time in terms of expenses. I think we have a total budget of around 165,000 or 160,000 in that ballpark. And right now, I think we're sitting at having expended over 50% of that budget. And we talked to our council last night during our finance committee meeting, and she attributed this primarily to the spike in requests for open records.
Is that the only reason?
To me, that's the answer that I got, that was the primary reason.
Any other questions about the financial report?
No, I don't have a question, but Dr. Means, if you recall, I can't recall exactly when it was the last fiscal year, we talked about increasing the legal budget because of the fact that we overspend every year, and it is pretty low. And of course, with the, I can't recall her name now, the attorney said last year, what increased that, and it sort of went through the roof, simply because of all of the special ed kinds of things that we had to address. Now, having said that, I just believe that we're coming up on budget season, that we need to take a look at that and go ahead and put some additional money into the legal budget.
As the chair of the finance committee, we're going to count on you to make sure that happens.
All I would share, Madam Chair, is that the current status of our budget is very healthy. It's very good. Now we have to be cautious. It's still early, but I want to thank Byron and his team for really keeping us in a good position. We're tracking this constantly. You saw our KPIs that we're using to measure this we actually look at it on a weekly basis. There was a question about legal fees. I think there are three major reasons for the spike, in my opinion. The first is the open records request. It is time consuming for legal counsel to the point where Mr. Pruitt is our lead counsel, but Ms. Jolliffe, Andrea Jolliffe, has had to help Mr. Pruitt a great deal in handling that work. The second factor is that we've been involved in quite a few issues, just at the governance level, and it's required Mr. Pruitt to weigh in with a number of different opinion letters and to just to kind of help guide us and navigate us. And then the third issue is more student related in regards to we are seeing a spike in more contentious individual education plans, meetings or IEP meetings. We're also seeing an increase in Section 504 requests, Section 504 requests for students when they're not necessarily special education or qualified for special education, but they do qualify for accommodations. And in some cases, we need to have legal counsel at those meetings, or our school psychologists and special ed team will call Ms. Jolliffe and Mr. Pruitt for counsel. So those are the three major reasons as we look at the invoices, why we believe that we're continuously, but also in a good way, working with legal counsel.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
also, Mr. Worthy, when we talk about increased legal fees, I wish the Finance Committee would also address the second law firm that is under contract as well. The expenses are not that great compared to Mr. Pruitt's law firm, but it is a cost factor. that's something that should be addressed.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful report. I do enjoy reading your reports. I especially like to see that we're performing, that our fund balance is healthy and that we're ahead of and I know that some of this money is due to increased property taxes. Yes, so I want to get sure that everybody knows that we all feel that can. All right, next on our agenda is the board president's report. Dr. Gant really regrets that she couldn't be here with us tonight, but she did send some information to me. And so with the board's indulgence, I'll go through her report. So these are the 4 things that she felt that we needed to make sure that we address. And that is to confirm the GSB and restorative session dates for our training to continue. So Ms. Palmer has graciously sent out a poll, and we collected a bunch of dates from that for those of you that have responded to the poll. And based on that response, we were able to determine that GSBA looks like it's going to be, and Ms. Palmer, you can help me with this, do we have a definitive date for the GSBA follow-up? December 9th, right? And so I had sent an email to the Superintendent's Evaluation Committee asking, that's going to be on the 9th, if we can have the 11th for a follow-up for Superintendent's Evaluation Committee, because that was the next date that we had. And so if you would please look at your calendars. I think there are 2 or 3 people that have not responded to that particular poll. But December 11th will be the date, I'm sorry, December 11th will be the date. And on that day, we should be able to look at our aggregated responses and pretty much come up with the final report for the superintendent's evaluation for the end of the year. Now, prior to that day, on December 2nd or 4th, I'm still waiting for responses from some board members on a dual poll. We need to meet and give the superintendent an opportunity to present his year-end report to us. You're not on the 4th? Okay, what about the 2nd? Well, that was the other date that we had. We only had, right now, my poll is split equally. So with the 2nd work, I hate for that to be the first day after Thanksgiving, but if we don't do it on that date, then we'll miss a critical date.
I think that's the night of the equity training.
Equity training is on that night here? I thought I saw that as an available date.
Well, it's actually, it's put, it's
It's
not.
earlier, it's at 4 o'clock.
No, it's at 6.
That's 6. Okay, folks, then I'm back to, you'll get another dual poll. And it will come from me, it won't come from Ms. Palmer. And I will look at her list of available dates. And that's going to push us into definitely having a called meeting in December. We'll finish the superintendent's evaluation this year.
Sorry, December 11th, I don't see anything. I don't see that I have an email asking me about
I'm sorry,
the 11th.
on the 11th. Now, it was the time when I laid out the potential schedule. So that, no, you haven't said anything that said that's the date, because I was
see.
waiting for the GSBA date to come down.
I see.
Are we good?
I mean, that can be good, I just didn't know about it. And so the sequence of events is that we will, Dr. Means will present to us, and then we'll do our evaluations, or we will do our evaluations, and then he'll present to
My
us?
hope is that he will present to us and we'll be able to complete our evaluations during that presentation. And then we will take our complete evaluations and go into our cycle of dividing up the work to actually compile the aggregate evaluation.
But everybody doing their individual evaluations will happen when?
You may begin anytime you have the dashboard, but the goal was for him to present the dashboard to us so that we could ask questions about the data and the data points.
But do we have the instrument?
Yes, that was sent to you last week.
Does anybody else have this?
I'm sure I will look again, but it's there, the timeline, so I can certainly send it to you again.
Please do.
I'll be happy to do that. Okay, but at any rate, so that's out there, and again, now I have a better date, so I can draw a couple of times. The next thing thing that Dr. Gant wanted us to talk about is an ad hoc committee for the legal counsel. Greg has agreed to serve, and she's also asked me to serve, and she's looking for one more person to serve on this ad hoc committee to review the response from the RFP. We're not going to do that here. I'll let her carry that item when she returns. And then the fourth item is discuss and confirm the process for the timeline for our District 2 vacancy. We want to express our appreciation to Ms. Berry for her time served on the board, but we need to start thinking about when we want to get together and look at our process for filling that vacancy. Some of that discussion happened today in the policy committee meeting, but we haven't had a full board discussion on that. And so we can have that discussion again when our president returns, unless someone has an objection or has some comments that they want to make now.
Yeah, go back and read what you said about an ad hoc committee.
There is, last week in our, not last week, week before, in our work session, Dr. Means informed the board that he had only one response to the RFP when we asked for legal counsel to take care of only the advanced ed complaint. And so that RFP response has been received and it has not been reviewed. The recommendation was that the president could appoint an ad hoc committee to look at that response to see if that meets our needs or we need to repost the RFP. And so that's what that conversation is about.
Well, according to my knowledge, board members, we don't have any business with our figures in the RFPs. That is a administrative staff role.
So the RFP process is complete, the results are in, and so the question is, who reviews this RFP, since this one is specific to representing the board?
I don't care.
The district, then who participates in that? So that's the discussion that I would love for us to have with our president.
What I'm saying is this, RFPs are handled by the staff, not by board members.
That's done, yes, sir. I agree. And so typically, it's something that's within the purview of operations. This complaint is not in the purview of operations. It's one of those that's in between the gray areas, the district and the board. And so we would definitely be invited to participate in that. Am I right, Dr. Means, or am I going down a slippery slope here? Okay, I want to make sure. All right, so this is going to be different from what we've experienced. That's where we are.
Question?
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to get my dates straight.
That's something in writing. Don't try and do that from this conversation.
No, I know, but I mean, are we, did you give us a date for the superintendent evaluation meeting? Are we still engaged in?
She sent a doodle poll.
Yeah.
It looks like at the doodle poll, about half of us, Kara, myself, Tawana, Charles, Greg, and Linda have responded.
Okay.
Unfortunately, 4 of us picked one night and 4 of us picked the other night. So we're going to have to find either a third option or some of us will have to re-look at our calendars.
And I will definitely be working on that this week because, again, the critical day here is trying to get everything in our hands by December 6th so that we can turn it around in 2 or 3 days and then meet before the regular board meeting in December. If we are not able to meet before the regular board meeting, we will have a call meeting in December in an already very tight schedule. So I'm going to ask everybody to please look at this with an eye of favor to getting it done the week of the first week in December. Is that good? Yeah, we are moving along and.
Linda?
Yes.
Can I volunteer for that committee, Keisha?
If you'll just notify the president, that will be after you. The board, next is our superintendent's report.
I have a quick report, Madam President, board members, community members. There's a bill in the legislature right now. It's Senate Bill 102. From a school district perspective, administratively, we were very excited about that Senate bill. It's the legislature's attempt to support community schools and wraparound services for schools. It specifically identified Title I schools that are in the bottom 15% of performance in the state of Georgia. We have at least one school that would meet that qualification. So we're excited about that bill that's currently being floated around before the start of the legislative session in January. Next month, Mr. Gaskins and I will be presenting to the board and the community ongoing academic data and climate data that we have spoken to you about in the past. I've shared the college and career readiness performance index data with you for almost a month now. You've had that spreadsheet to see how each of our schools have performed in all 5 areas of the academic portion of the CCRPI, and also how our schools ranked in terms of climate and culture. And so we want to unpack that data more. We're pleased that some of our schools have made some gains. There are some schools that have not made gains. Overall, our school district is still not performing at the level that we would like. I will point out again, in our charter contract, it identifies the fact that in Appendix A, that one of the criteria to maintain our charter is to show improvement on the CCRPI. We have focused so much of our discussion and attention in the community around Appendix B that kind of outlines the roles and responsibilities of the local school governance teams. We haven't spent a lot of time looking at Appendix A that really talks about student achievement and what are we doing for children. And so we will share at our December meeting the data, but also some of the efforts we're making to improve our school system. That's the conclusion of my report, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Means. Any questions for Dr. Means about that? Before I jump to the next item, I'm sorry, I skipped something in my president's report, and that was the follow-up for restorative justice circles. That meeting date has not been defined, but looking at the calendar again from Ms. Palmer, that's gonna have to move to the week after the board meeting. So the week of the 13th, 14th, 15th, in that time frame. So what we'll do is we simply use that poll that we sent out, and I think only 2 people have responded, right? So we need 2 people to respond to that poll, and then we'll have a more definitive list of potential dates, and we'll simply send that out with all the dates that were requested from Dr. Grant earlier today. So that looks like, again, it'll be easier happening after the meeting as well.
I think that's the one that Dr. Knox and I both had trouble using. And so maybe just send an email as to those dates.
We're probably 20 days on.
I think it was 7 or 8, and I've done it twice. It apparently hasn't gone through.
So I did it too, and then it didn't go through, and I tried to do it on the actual email itself, and that didn't go through, but when I clicked to go to the page outside of the email, then it did work. But I didn't know it didn't work.
The same exact what I did.
I'm an over-responder, so I probably sent my request twice. Sorry. All right, great, thank you. So if you guys want to try that, and then let us know that if it doesn't go through. Next is the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, just for procedural sake, you have the ability to take all your consent agenda items. You do not have to take them one by one. You did not pull anything off of your consent. For efficiency's sake, I would just recommend that someone makes a motion, second, and then the board vote on your consent agenda.
We'll do that as soon as we take care of personnel.
There you
That's
go.
good, okay. So number 10 on the list is personnel recommendations. Dr. Means, you have a recommendation for us.
I recommend personnel.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
Second. Moved by Mr. Davis, second by Mr. Worth. Are you ready for the question?
Yeah, I don't have a question now. In reviewing this, I was looking at personnel recommendation list, looking at certified employees and also classified employees. And I see, hold on a second, I gotta find it. Mr. Griner, that we were going to approve for the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, but he is listed under classified. Is that correct? He's classified? No, okay, all right, thank you. That's it?
No more questions? Ready for the vote, all in favor? We have a unanimous vote for the personnel recommendation, thank you.
Madam Chair, before you move on, I will just highlight three elements or three actions that you just approved. The first is Chris Griner. Chris has been approved to become our new Chief Financial Officer. He has experience in Barrow County and also Forsyth County. The ironic part is that when Mr. Griner left Forsyth County to go to South Carolina, that created a vacancy, which eventually Mr. Larry Hamill filled. So we've in essence had a trade of athletic portions. It's really, we're really excited about Mr. Griner being with us, and he comes with us with a lot of experience. We're also very pleased that Fowler Drive, they've gone through the process of hiring or interviewing for a principal 4 different times now. But they have a principal, I think Ms. Hardy is her name. Ms. Hardy's coming from a larger district in the state of Maryland. She has children in this area, and that was the draw for her. She had a son at the University of Georgia's Law School. She has a daughter in college in Florida. That was the draw, in addition to some of the challenging work that we have embraced. And she comes from a school that is very similar to Fowler and Julia Jackson Harris in terms of demographics and the economic profile. So she's really excited. And then the last personnel action that you've approved is hiring Mr. Lawrence Harris to become our new Director of Community Engagement. Mr. Harris is replacing Claire Suggs, who was in that role. We will be posting for the Chief Executive Officer position for the Athens Community Career Academy tomorrow morning. Mr. Harris has been in the role of CEO of the Career Academy for the past 4+ years. He's done a wonderful job in that role, but the interview team shared with me that he was a natural when it came to the questions that were presented to him as it relates to communicating and connecting with the community. So those are 3 highlights to our personnel list.
I'm really excited about those changes. I know the Career Academy is probably mourning that loss, but still are getting some grateful for that. Next, we have on our agenda the consent agenda. And I really like your recommendation, and I want to remind the board that it's 7:22 p.m. We have the consent agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written? Or is there anything on here that anyone needs further discussion on?
I move that we approve it as written.
We have a second. Dr. Dykeman, seconded. Ready for the question? All in favor? Any opposed? We have a unanimous vote to approve the consent agenda. Record time. Let's let Dr. Dykeman go.
Ms. Davis, I would just thank the board for your diligence during the work session on the 7th of November that allowed us to be efficient this evening. We're also very pleased that you have approved a contribution of $50,000 from our school district to the Career Academy for the construction of a manufacturing lab. We have manufacturers locally who want to expand this type of trade and career pathway for our students. We plan to create that lab right here at H.T. Edwards, and we felt as an administrative team, and we appreciate your support, that it was really critical that we also contributed to that process and to truly make it a public-private partnership with our employers in the community.
Thank you. All right, we're down to item 12, other action items. There are two action items here. Item 12.1, action related to the Professional Standards Commission charge. This is an item that we discussed in our work session. The action item out of that was to, we had two action items. One, the board came to consensus that we saw no ethics violation in this complaint, and then there was to be a letter drafted, and I believe Mr. Davis and Dr. Dykeman volunteered to draft a letter for that purpose. And there is no real reason to have that discussion about the letter tonight, but this is action related to that, and so I guess at this point our action is to vote. Do we have a vote necessary on this?
My question is I don't see the letter up there, and so I'm not sure.
I don't know that the letter needs to be up there. What were you suggesting?
Well, generally, all the items that we covered are up there. I mean, I don't have a copy of it.
And you submitted it a couple of days ago.
So was that letter something that we were planning to discuss tonight and do something with tonight, to vote on the letter or to vote on the action? The action was to notify the PSC that we did not see a ethics finding. Is that right?
The action item was the letter.
Okay, so do we have that, a letter with all the revisions that you have received?
I see it on the agenda.
Did you send the letter out to us with revisions that you have received?
There was an email 2 days ago, I think, 2 or 3 days ago, 3 days ago.
Do you see some additional input since then?
I thought we were going to discuss it. You know, I thought we were going to have the letter and discuss it. That was my understanding.
And I am not in the same place based on this part of the conversation. I thought our vote was simply tonight, our action was simply to vote to notify the PSC that we found that we did not see an ethics violation. The accusations did rise to the level of an ethics violation, and I thought that was the vote tonight. That's what Dr. Gannon discussed. Yes, Mr. Sadek.
Yes, so the email that was sent by Greg, with Greg and Kara's name on it, said, attached is an item to be posted under 12.1 of Thursday's agenda. And then it will be voted on at Thursday's meeting with all voices being heard. So anyway, that was what we were sent Monday at 11:16 a.m.
So since Monday, I've probably seen at least 4 changes to that letter. So I'm not sure why the letter's germane.
Well, there hasn't been any changes to that letter. I mean,
You
people,
did receive additional input from board.
and that's what, and what I told, in fact, you specifically made some suggestions, and I said, bring it to this meeting tonight, and that's what we were discussing.
So the intent was to edit the letter tonight in the board meeting?
The intent was for everyone to be heard on the board concerning the letter that would be sent to the PSC.
Okay, then we're going to need to table that part of this because that was not my understanding or was it Dr. Gannon's understanding.
I don't know, Madam Chair, I don't know how I could have made it any clearer. And I did so in a timely fashion, so I don't know what else I could do, both in my email to Dr. Means, that Dr. Knox.
We'll post the letter, Madam Chair. The letter's coming, you can post it.
But it's not just the letter, it's the
I
letter in
understand.
addition to the changes that have been recommended. So you're not posting the final letter, you're just posting a draft. And so again, in terms of having a discussion about that.
That letter represented the input of 6 of the board members. 2 board members were sent a letter in the last week and chose not to respond, except I did hear from Mr. Worthy today, and he said he approved it 100%. And I did get comments from you after I sent the email to Dr. Means that Dr. Knox just read. And I gave you the response that we can discuss your particular concerns at this meeting.
I have no issues, I have no desire to discuss.
In fact,
Madam Chair, the letter's projected right now, so
I can't see the letter.
it's behind you.
So with this letter, again, this does not give us the recommended changes from Dr. Gant or myself. Did anyone else in there recommended changes?
I
Do
did.
we have those, and Dr. Mattis, do we have any of those?
Well,
They're not incorporated here.
let us discuss it then.
So then I would think that the most efficient thing would be for us to get a copy of this letter in our hands, as well as the recommended changes.
Madam Chair,
Yes. This takes us into.
I have to say this for my own advocacy. So this is a personnel issue.
And it should not be projected on the
But
screen.
if this is going to expedite the process to end this, I don't mind if the letter is projected for the entire world to see. It's fine. But this is a personnel issue, and I understand the state of where we are, but in the name of moving forward, I've asked Ms. Duke to project it.
So I have a question for our attorney. Is this indeed a personnel issue that we are projecting on this screen? Is
There
this,
are personnel issues, but if you're asking what is exempt, what can you discuss in executive session, it's the hiring, firing, discipline, and periodic evaluation of personnel.
and this letter falls under?
But I know where I'm at.
Excuse me, last week in the work session, we went back and forth in terms of what we could discuss, but actually it was stated that by our attorney that we must discuss this in open session, that we could not discuss this in, executive session, so I don't understand.
All right, let me correct what I said before then. So y'all discussed this one time in executive session on the theory that this is, that if you did report to superintendent of PSCs, tell them that you think he's committed a violation, that would be akin to discipline, and that's the discipline. The next time you talk about it, you decide you'd rather do an open session, and that's fine too.
It's my impression that there's nothing in
Let me
it.
explain, I see a roll of eyes, let me explain.
Yeah.
Most of your open meetings act exceptions don't tell you you gotta do an executive session, they just say you can. There's a handful that you have to do there, this is not one of them.
May I say something?
The work session, and then to summarize, Greg and I were gonna write this letter that basically summarized what we talked about in the work session, and then let everybody look at it, have some input if they wanted to, and then bring it here to this meeting so that we could all vote on it. And if it passed, then that would be the letter that was sent to the PSC.
And so, let me respond to that, because the work was to draft the letter for the PSC. So this wasn't a letter for us, it was a letter to send to the PSC along with our vote that said we had no finding. That was my understanding.
It is a letter to the PSC, but we wanted to make sure that it was the letter as written, in however it ends up being, that it is approved by the majority of the board. And that was my understanding of what we were voting.
Okay, so who is editing this letter now, because we have changes to make to the letter?
No,
I'm sorry?
no, do not have changes as of right now. If you project the letter, Mr. Davis and Dr. Dyman can walk you through it.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Yes, Mr. Word. Thank you, Dr. Means.
Yeah, I feel compelled to say something at this point because of what Mr. Davis said a few minutes ago. Yes, I spoke with Mr. Davis today and I also spoke with Dr. That. Now, the letter in its original form, yes, I was 100% for that. Now, I know Dr. Mattis sent a long email this morning, wanted to add a statement. I'm totally opposed to that. I'm totally opposed to what we're doing anyway, but we've done it because we are out of our element, people. We are not in our lane as board members with this PSC complaint. Now, I'll pass some information around. I dealt with the code of ethics for educators for years as a high school principal. And what Mr. Paul Shaw sent and asked this board to do, I don't think we should have done it. But we have done it, and what was in the letter, I was totally agreeable with it. But now, if you're talking about adding things to that letter, no, I am not for that. Because like I said, we are out of our element with that. I tell you what.
Difficult, thank you, Dr. Mr. Ward, I appreciate it.
Hold on.
You have something more?
Absolutely, much more.
Thank you.
Okay.
You want to say something more about this document?
Very quickly, what I have passed to you was printed off of the PSC website, GAPSC.com. You can go to that website, and what you're looking at here, you click on Code of Ethics, it's there. Now, each of you get a copy?
Yes.
Okay. If you go down on the first page there of this document, you'll see complaint. Yes, when an ethics violation is taking place, you must report that. I'm not going to read that to you. You can read it. Okay? Then you look at G through, let me turn the page here. G through M. We as board members are not authorized to do that. That's why I agreed with what the letter that Mr. Davis and Dr. Datton put together. They did a beautiful job on that because they didn't find anything, that they found anything when you look at ratification, revoking a certificate, denial of a certificate, suspension, reprimand, warning, and the list goes on. We as board members, we aren't authorized to do that. I don't know why Mr. Paul Shaw asked this board to do this. We're totally out of our element. And if you read through this document, I believe on page 4, you'll see that, yes, when an ethics violation has been committed, you're required to report it. That's a compliment. Not only educators, any stakeholder can do it. Anybody. But now to go and do something else with this letter, other than what the two board members, Mr. Davis and Dr. Datton, put in that letter, no. We're out of our element. Again, we are not authorized to do this.
So at this point, and I share.
I would like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion for the letter to be presented. I propose that the letter be voted on.
Second.
Second.
Whoa, 1 second, please.
The
So,
motion been made and the second been made. Now you gotta call for the questions. If additional questions, you carry the motion.
so the motion is made by Mr. Davis. Would you restate your motion?
My motion is to to accept the letter as written by Dr. Dykeman and myself per instructions from this board in our work session 2 weeks ago, as is,
Sent to the,
and that was sent to each board member for feedback and was sent to Dr. Means after that process and asked to be put on this week's agenda. So I'm proposing that letter come up for a vote.
Just to be clear, you're talking about the draft from the 21st.
I'm talking about the draft that went to Dr. Means on the 21st. The one that said attached is an item to be posted under 12.1 of Thursday's agenda.
so that's the
Sorry.
original letter.
The email,
Original.
the email from the 18th at 3 p.m.
Right.
Yes. And that letter is for the purpose of going to the PSC.
It's going to the PSC, but it also is a public document.
Going to the PSC. So that much I know. I don't know about the rest of that. Okay, so that is your motion.
Well,
And
I mean,
about the-
it is part of the agenda.
That's fine, but I'm saying
It's
the
still
action
not
is to vote
there,
on
but it is part of the agenda.
12-1, action related to Professional Standards Commission charge. And the disposal of that is to respond to them with the letter that you and Dr. Dykeman prepared. Am I clear?
With the help of the majority of this board, yes.
Okay, thank you. And so we have a motion by Mr. Davis. Who seconded that motion?
I did.
And, all right, so, seconded by Mr. Worthy. Are you ready for the question?
Yeah.
Question.
Discussion.
Is this a discussion?
Yeah.
I will say this. As I stated in that long email that I sent to you all last night, I went back and forth with this.
I'm gonna ask you.
I'm going to discuss.
I'm gonna, no, I have to ask you to respect one boundary first, please. And this is because if this discussion.
When advanced ed, no, we're gonna stop this right now. This game that you played, we're gonna stop this. I've tried to be professional. I've tried to deal with these shenanigans that you play. But when the advanced ed came out, he sat here and read that advanced ed. He read it, but no, you didn't say a
I'm
word.
gonna call a point of order here because this
No,
item
we're gonna do
item
things,
12
we're gonna do things fairly.
This is related to the professional standards.
And now it's not fair, now you don't remember. That's,
I need for
okay.
us to stay in this space.
I stay in this space, I'm gonna start over if you don't mind.
And I need to be very clear that we do not introduce anything new here.
I'm going to discuss my place on this. I am going to discuss my place on this.
We will not.
Because the thing is, we had opportunities to discuss this. We went back and forth. It was not stated, it stated we were gonna vote on it. So I sent in, after a long thought, long prayer, I had to think through this. I was not at peace with that last paragraph. And it was not stated that we were not going to, we said we were gonna vote on it, which means you can amend. But, and being transparent, I sent you all a letter and stated that so that if we could resolve it before, then we could. And because of that, now you come prepared with shenanigans.
No, ma'am, I would like to ask you this. If you would like to amend the motion to modify the letter, that is allowed at this point. But
Okay.
I will not entertain a whole discussion about something not related to this letter and the motion on the floor.
Okay. I'm gonna say this first. We need to do the right things. You know, I told you all yesterday, I met President Obama, and the thing that stuck with me the most that he said about leaders is that who we say we are, what we say we value, should align with what we do. And I'm tired of these shenanigans on this board. Now I'm going to get to my amendment. In the letter, I agree that letter was well written. It represented what we said as a board. But I would like to change the bottom line, the last line, and where it says in conclusion. My reason being,
Would you please state it as an amendment to the
Can we
letter?
please have the letter up there so we know what we're talking about?
I just want to change it to state, in conclusion, while the Clarke County Board of Education sees no need for further PSC involvement, we will determine the best measures for addressing these concerns. At the beginning of this letter, throughout the letter, we go back to the top, please. We state clearly that the first alleged violation and the second alleged violation were violations. But somehow we got into this place of trying to determine what is a PCS level violation, which I think that is what was our order, trying to determine for PSC, what is an alleged PSC violation? Is it a violation or isn't it a violation? But I agree with the, with the authors of the document. Okay, we don't want to push it to that level. However, my purpose for adding this amendment is because we have to begin to hold the superintendent accountable for things. No one's perfect, but we have to, these are violations, and I believe that we need to add that we recognize that although it doesn't meet whatever we think their level is, but at a local level, we are concerned, and we do want to have time that we can address it on a local level.
Thank you, Dr. Madison. Could you restate your amendment, or did somebody write down the amendment to this motion?
I can give it to you.
Do you want me to read it? You want to
I only want to read that statement that she offered as an amendment to the motion, because that is what I'm going to call for a vote.
So the sentence is, in conclusion, while the Clarke County Board of Education sees no need for further PSC involvement, semicolon, we will determine the best measures for addressing the concerns.
Thank you. This is the amendment. Do we have a second on that amendment? Dr. Yeager seconded the amendment. Is that correct? Do we have time for discussion? Is there any discussion?
Yes, absolutely, because of what I said earlier. You're stepping out of your lane. This, the first part that you just read is okay. And I'm looking at what you said. We would determine the best measures for addressing the concerns. That's not our role. That's the PSC role. And what Paul Shaw did, he should have done. I think he passed the buck. That's not our role. And I just passed this to you. You look at all of these things in terms of, have we found a violation? We don't have authority to do these things. That's why we have advanced ed coming out. We are continuing.
No, it's not why we have advanced ed coming out.
No. I'm saying for violating things that we shouldn't be doing.
Okay. Is there other discussion? Do I have a hand? Yes.
Charles, it seems to me, and I'm not, and I know where you're going with this, but it seems to me that she's not advocating any action. She's at most advocating further discussion on that particular piece. That's all internal to our board governance and our state of norms that.
Our board governance?
What?
Okay. You said that's.
Yeah, in other words, that when I did not hear her advocating any other action after this is passed, with the exception of further discussion that could take place within our discussion of norms.
That's not what the state.
No, that's not what I meant.
Okay, then I'm not.
I'm sorry,
reading
I
it.
recognize Mr. Davis, and I'd like to make a statement because, again, we have an opportunity to go into an executive session so that we can discuss something, because when you start bringing up things about what actions you're going to take against the superintendent, that's personnel. That's private. It is not a matter of public consumption. And so I'm going to ask us to refrain from that because it is a violation. And so we have a motion, we have a second. I need a vote on amending this document to add the statement that Dr. Maddox has offered. All in favor?
Can you have the statement again?
Can we read it again?
You seconded it.
I got it. Okay.
Oh, okay.
In conclusion, while the Clarke County Board of Education sees no need for further PSC involvement, we will determine the best measures for addressing the concerns.
Mr. Worthing?
Okay, now the first part that you read, I'm looking at it because she said it last evening. I'm fine with that. But that second part, we will determine the best measures for addressing the concerns. No, that's not our role. That's PSC role.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Davis.
be taken and that it is a PSC thing and that the PSC should not have given this to us. I also see Dr. Maddox's point in that, and I may be wrong in interpreting this, but I feel like what she wants to do is just say, we are going to, and like Greg said, there's no specific action that she's asking us to take. It's that we want to, and to me it goes along the same lines of, we're working on this. We have things that we need to work on, and as these kinds of concerns come up, we need to figure out a way to address them.
And so, does that board action warrant being attached to this response to the PSC, who simply said to us, tell us if you have a finding? That is the question that I have, and that's the concern that I have. If we are making a decision unilaterally that we need to address ourselves in terms of how we police ourselves and how we handle our discipline problems among ourselves, then that is totally independent of this action 12.1 related to this commission charge. The charge said, tell us if you have a finding.
And that may be, I think of it almost as akin to what happened with the advanced ed complaint, because I think Dr. Means addressed in his response to advanced ed that, yes, we have some things to work on, but we are going to work on them. So I almost feel like it's saying the same thing. And maybe they don't need to know that, but I feel like it's not a terrible thing for them to know that we know that they're, you know.
It may not be a terrible thing for them to know, but I want us to also consider the context in which we're doing this and what the long-term effect of that might be. So with that, I'm going to step back into my role as trying to carry this motion, and I would like to close the comment section after this last comment, Mr. Woods.
Okay. What I'm reading here is saying that we, as a board, you put that in that letter and send it to Paul Shaw, and something else come up, that we going to do the same thing that we have done with this. That's not our role, folks. I say again, what I have given you, printed from the PSC website. If Dr. Means or any other educator in this school district, as a board member or anyone sitting out there, you have a right to file a complaint. You don't need this in that letter. We as a board, we don't need to continue to address these concerns. That's not our role.
All right, with that said, I would like to call for the vote. All in favor of the amended, substitute amendment to the letter? Well, this is
Just
the
looking whether to amend the motion. So then you'll end up with either an amended motion or the original motion, and then you'll take a vote on it.
So I'm voting for the amended motion now. With the amended motion is by Dr. Maddox, seconded by whomever. All in favor? You have 5 in favor. Opposed? 2 opposed. That motion carries. All in favor of the,
Motion has been made.
sorry, who can hear?
I wanted to have a chance to speak to the motion. Not the amendment, but the motion.
Okay, we're gonna call for that motion.
Good.
All right, closing out item 12.1. All in favor of submitting the letter to the PSC, right, as amended, please, I need a motion, don't I?
Yes.
I need a new motion, excuse me. I need a new motion now.
I move that we send the letter to the PSC as amended.
Thank you, by Dr. I thought we didn't know that, we just need a vote to send it, because we already have that. Thank you. I need a vote to send the amended letter to the PSC. All in favor? Oh, well, we already had discussion on both, we have an amended motion. We carried the amended motion, do I have to go back to this?
More discretion, I mean, normally, yes, you would allow some more discretion.
More discussion?
so I'd just like to revisit what the PSC asked us to do. They asked for a thorough investigation. And to me at least, a thorough investigation is where a group asks an impartial third party to look into allegations, collect information without bias, and then report back to the group. That's what I understood the PSC asked for us to do. And as I outlined in my message to all of you, I don't think we did that at all. And so that in mind, because that may come up later as well.
Thank you, Dr. Knott. Any further discussion? We now will take a vote on submitting this letter to the amended letter to the PSC. All in favor of submitting this letter to the PSC with the no objections, raise your hand, please. All opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chairman, I would recommend we go into executive session because by virtue of that vote, you don't want me as superintendent. And we need to have a discussion on how I leave. So I would ask, I'm making a recommendation to go into executive session.
Dr. Means? Chair, we have already voted not to go into that executive session. And so, I'm sorry. Dr. Maddox. Dr. Maddox. Point of order.
I'm gonna need for.
So there's no executive session, Ms. Davis?
The board elected not to have an executive session.
I will say, I was gonna say in executive session, your vote this evening, the amendment from Dr. Knott, or from Dr. Maddox is political in nature. I don't think it was unbiased. It's extremely disappointing. And what I will share with you, you don't want me here. And that's fine if that's what your decision is. And by virtue of the vote, that's what you shared with me. But I want the public to know, because I would have said this in executive session. This is politically motivated. This vote solidifies the efforts of many to rid me of the district, and so you are successful. You have been successful. You are successful, and whenever we can convene in an executive session to discuss my exit from Clarke County, I will embrace it.
Point of order. Point of order. Point of order, please. I am very disappointed as where we have evolved to. We are at item 12-2 on the agenda, and that is action related to the complaint regarding a VOE member. Thank you. We are at.
If these people continue this, I'm gonna need, I feel threatened, and I need this chief to stay right here.
Dr. Maddox, Chief Sizemore is with us for the entire board.
And I'm just taking my heads at some of you elders in this community, and the way you just let somebody come in and divide this community up, and you're gonna shake your head at me.
Dr. Maddox.
Please stay over there for both of our protections, because I'm not taking this, not another night. People sitting in the front of me, heckling me at every meeting, and she said right here and don't say a word. Nobody says anything to defend me. This is the last night. I hope so too, or we're gonna be in court, because I'm not taking it anymore. I'm gonna need you to stay there. I feel threatened.
I am going to ask the board to delay any action on item 12-2. I'd like to move the agenda down to item 13, adjournment. May I have a motion for adjournment?
I'm sorry.
You can't do that, Madam Chair.
Why?
All right, so you're skipping 12.2?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, what did you say?
A motion to adjourn is always in order.
Thank you.
So you're skipping 12.2, Madam Chair?
Skipping 12.2 because of the deterioration of the meeting. And so now if the board wants to sit here and continue with this climate, I'm happy to try and carry us through this. But I
Well,
don't
the
think
attorney
it's
is
fair.
correct. Motion to adjourn is a privileged motion.
Everything that needed to be done tonight has been accomplished.
Are we able to respond at all?
To what?
Well, to Dr. Mead's statement, because I think that,
Let's just
He
adjourn.
asked for an executive session for us to have this conversation because there was forewarning that something like this.
I was not forewarned that this is what we thought was
Sometimes
gonna
I get the
happen.
message, most times I don't, but I got this.
No,
message.
this is not the message that I was intended. This was not, I know that maybe it was just, you discussed it with Dr. Means about that this might happen and we might need an executive session, but I was not privileged to that, and that is not what I was planning, and my vote was not politically motivated, and it was wrong. And so I feel like I just wanted to get that out there, because I didn't have any idea that this is how this
And
was
I
going
would
to
have
go.
voted for an executive session.
Madam Chair, you need to adjourn.
I'm so sorry, this meeting has degenerated, I apologize to our public. At this point, we can't objectively move to the next agenda item, which is item 12-2, which is equally as charged as 12-1. And so rather than subject ourselves to this one more, we really need to, as a board, have a communication and executive session to talk about this and honor the superintendent's request. I am asking for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? This meeting is adjourned.